קצת מסיבת סיום של החבר'ה פה עכשיו, בסדר.
כן. אוקיי, היי.
שבו קדימה, זה מסיבת סיום.
Yeah. Okay, we're about to start our closing event of the conference. And this is more of an intimate participatory event, so I invite everybody to come forward. You can sit however you want, feel like you're in a group, because we're going to do this together. I'm going to introduce our guides, fearless leaders, teachers, performers this evening. I just want to say I hope everybody is as elated as I am with everything that we went through in the past 2 days. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. I knew this will be wonderful, but I never imagined how productive and enriching and how many stimulating conversations are going to happen in these rooms on and off the stage. And I was mostly sitting here just overjoyed to, being able to bring you all to and meet you and be part of some of the group conversations here. So thank you very much. Anybody who was at the concert yesterday, which was magnificent, knows how lucky we are to have this workshop right now with Rabbi Roly Matalon and Yair Harel. Yes. Because we get to get a little bit more of them and also sing together with them. And I will briefly introduce both of them. Yair Harel is a world-renowned Israeli performer, singer, artistic director, teacher, community activist, a key agent and driving spirit in this Piyyut revival and contemporary Piyyut movement that we've all been exploring and celebrating and interrogating these past 2 days. And he's really made revolutionary impact on Israeli culture in the last decade or so. His own musical work combines knowledge in Jewish traditions from North Africa, the Middle East, Eastern Europe, together with improvisation, and he has studied under a number of leading paitanim and musicians, including Andre Hajdu, Rabbi Meir Ataya, and Zarb Master Roger Ishai, and Darmeshid Shemirani.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah, it was close. Yair is also founder and editor-in-chief of the Invitation to Piyyut website. Anybody who is not familiar with this is an incredibly useful, important, influential online resource. The artistic director of the Sod Kolot Rabim, festival, and of the Ben Tzvi Piyyut Vocal Ensemble. He was the co-founder of the New Jerusalem Orchestra, produced many big, important, influential productions in the field of Jewish music, and together with Rabbi Matalon, he is the founding co-director of Global Piyyut Music, which used to be Piyyut North America. He was a visiting artist at UC Berkeley and also taught at the Hebrew University, the Center for Eastern Classical Music in Jerusalem, the Schechter Institute for Jewish Studies, and in the Jerusalem Academy High School for Music and Dance.
I'm afraid to speak after all that.
Yeah, should be.
It's good that we can sing.
Yeah, we invited you to sing.
Yeah, I decided to speak.
Okay, we'll take that too. Roly, Rabbi Matalon, is Bnei Yeshurun senior rabbi and the head of the community, Rosh Kehillah. He was born in Buenos Aires, was educated in Buenos Aires, in Montreal, in Jerusalem, and in New York. And he came to Bnei Yeshurun in 1986. Was part of its revitalization through engaged prayer and community building and interfaith cooperation, and is, an influential figure on the revitalization of Jewish synagogue life in New York, in the U.S. and in Israel too. As I said, he co-founded with Yair Global Piyyut Music, which is dedicated to the dissemination of liturgical music from Jewish communities around the world, and is himself an oud player and a student of Arabic, Turkish, and Armenian music. So thank you both.
Thank you too.
Oh, and we have shironim. I don't know what is the name of this object in English, but please pass them along. Okay, so please pass them down.
So this is the part where you're here, you're very important scholars, but this at this occasion you're going to sing, and this is what it's all about, right? We spoke about many interesting phenomena in the last 2 days, and then I will try to be one of those, to experience it ourselves.
So before we get to the singing, just a little bit of narrative and context to all this work that Yair and I are doing, that many of you participate in the work of Piyyut, research and collection and archiving and translation and all of these things. So we are basically the ones who take all of that and in many ways deliver it. So Yair and I, we want to tell you a little bit about our journeys. We met in 2006, and as they say, it was love at first sight. We felt a very, very deep connection, particularly because of our love of music and prayer, and we were both on this journey of Piyyut in different stages of our journey, and we realized that we grew up in different contexts, in different countries, and yet pieces of our stories were very, very similar, and we both came at some point to Piyyut, and that's where we met. We basically met in the Piyyut room, and then we continue this journey together and still working together with lots of plans for the future. So we're going to interview each other. So Yair, how did you come into Piyyut?
I'll try to answer, and then, but soon I feel you want to warm up, we'll soon start singing together the first song, and we'll move from having this, telling our stories in a way that I think will just have to emphasize how something that is, in the end, like a good song or a good book, it should be very, very personal. This Piyyutim that we're speaking of, the Paitanim we're writing, and on one hand, there's a lot of format to it, and a lot of knowledge, and in the end, if it's not very, very personal, it doesn't last. It won't move one generation. It won't even exist in the same generation. So this ability to have this, I think, relationship between something that is much bigger than you, like when you stand in the sense of prayer, you're standing in front of the divine, trying to be in contact with something that is beyond words, beyond time. But in the end, it's really, if it's burning inside you in a very personal way, we're speaking about it today also with Hadar, then I think we're trying to I think this brings it to life, and also to the ability to be also to communicate and to be in relationship with other people. Because in the end, we're sitting in this room, or it's either it's a synagogue, or either it's a setup for singing communities. People are coming with their longings, with their questions, and they want to, at the same time, to maintain that, but also to feel that there's some part of something that is beyond them. So this tension between being very, very present and being very, very open to the unknown in a way is something I think is why I think both of us feel it in one another and share it. And I think this is really an important part of the work in general. So when we tell our personal stories, it's not to tell our personal stories, it's just to see how that can really reflect on something that is happening in wider circles, also in Israel, also in the United States, and also maybe in this relationship that we're trying also to form between what has been happening in Israel that we also spoke of in the last 2 days, but how does it also echo and resonate, and having also the still in our in the presence of Peter's talk about the translation, how things that even when they're translated from one culture to another culture, one language to the other language, it has this ability, in the way you put it also, lit up also that understanding that it creates this movement also, that it doesn't belong also to someone. And there's this movement and something that is beyond even the language. So maybe I spoke too much already, we should sing something. And then I'll try to answer your question a little bit. But just to say that I did not grow up, in context to this first song that I want to teach you, and not to teach you in an academical way, in a very practical way, okay? Each one, we're going to hear the soloists here, Almog, Shir, be ready, etc. So this song, you can flip to the first page, is based on an Arab devotional Moroccan song called Tubulila. I'm not sure actually if it's, maybe Almog you can answer, if it's has this Judeo-Arabic, Maghrebi kind of taste, because I think the Arab is so close to the Hebrew, which is, again, not surprising, but in this case it even seems like a branch of a Judeo-Arabic in a Moroccan kind of setup, but totally Muslim. So it's a devotional Muslim song with the words here. I just brought you the first verse. Tubuli la ya nas wa abdu dima al-hanin al-ghafur huwa mul rahma. And if you read slower with knowing Hebrew a little bit, so Tubuli la shuvu le Elohim, return to God, ya nas, people, ya people, wa abdu dima, and worship Him. El-Hanin, the merciful, El-Ghafur, El-Ghafur, it's a rimel, the ones who forgives, כמו כפרה בעברית, Huwa mul rahma, He's full of mercy, merciful, of compassion. I came back recently with my ensemble, we performed, with the Piyyut ensemble, we performed in Essaouira, in a Judeo-Arabic festival, the Andalusian Atlantic Festival there. And the minute we sing the song, we kept it for the end, because it's like it becomes really, everybody sings. The Muslim singer came up to the stage, sang it in Arabic, and we sang some Hebrew verses that I'm soon going to teach you. And as I said, I did not grow up in this tradition at all. I have no Moroccan side, even when people are sure that I'm at least 50% Moroccan. Nothing, I did not grow up in a Moroccan tradition at all. I'm half, I can say, in a way, from my father's side, Kurdi, Iraqi, and my mother is American from Connecticut. So, but I grew up in this more kind of Ashkenazic, Bnei Akiva kind of, National Zionist Israeli kind of environment. I think I did not even know one Moroccan tune. Until at one point, I'll maybe get to it later, I was very, very, through my research, my seeking, seeking for a language for myself, and I was privileged enough to meet one of my big teachers called Rabbi Yair. He passed away 2 years ago, Unfortunately, he was too young. Really a very, very important figure in the continuation of Moroccan tradition in Israel. A big teacher, he did a lot of recordings and writings, and he taught. He was like such a big, important channel in the history of the continuation of a Moroccan tradition in Israel. So I was lucky enough to meet him, never mind how, and I became his disciple. And through him, this world of Moroccan liturgy, Piyyut, Tefillah, beyond that, it's a world. Through the Piyyut, it's really, as you know, it's a meeting place of so many different dimensions. I think they'll not meet in any other way, in any other form of culture and Jewish culture. So through one song, it opens up slowly. If you're sensitive enough, you understand that it's not only about the words and the melody. In this case, it opens up this relationship with the Arab culture. And then you say, okay, the Moroccan Jews, they've been living there for 2,000 years. And what does that say about their customs, about their rituals, about their philosophy, about their approach to halakha, about their approach to community? So many different things that can unfold from just one song. And when you see it performed in Morocco, in this case in a festival between Jews and Arabs singing together this verse and that verse, in Essaouira, in that small town at the Atlantic, that so many amazing Jewish Hebrew poets were writing their amazing Jewish poetry, Hebrew poetry in the 19th and 20th century. I had nothing, any kind of clue or idea of any of this growing up in Israel, in a religious environment. So now I'm at least some kind of percentage Moroccan, and I feel comfortable enough to teach you this song after being at least 20 years absorbed in this tradition and teachers, and Rabbi Chaim Luke, may he live for many, many years. Another I want to mention, because it's important, these names, it's important to mark these names of these big teachers, performers, Paitanim, who really are carrying for us. They're still really such an important place in the chain. They grew up in Morocco, and they have the ability to create this continuation, even though things are changing, but to have the connection is so important. And this is we're living in the time that these are the last teachers. That's it. That generation that still grew up from Morocco or wherever it is these are the last years. So I also think our work, I'm aware of this. It's so fragile, and it brings a lot of responsibility on really being able to listen, to really educate yourself to listen, to absorb, and to see from that point how things can continue to the future, but really being absorbed in this quality coming from these big teachers. So, Tubuli la ya nas abduddin. Tubuli la ya nas abduddin الحنين الغفور وامل الرحمة. That's all the tune. Take it slowly. توبوا لله يا ناس. Up to here. One. توبوا لله يا ناس. One. توبوا لله يا Let's connect them. And one. Tubu lillah ya nas. One. Tubu lillah ya nas. Wa'abdu dima. Wa'abdu dima. Good. Tubu lillah ya nas. Wa'abdu dima. الحنين الغفور الغفور. Almost the same thing. One. الحنين الغفور هو الرحمة هو الرحمة. From the beginning. توبوا لله يا ناس وعبدوا ديما الحنين الغفور هو الرحمة. يفهم. And as you know, in the bakashot we just heard from Peter's last talk, usually people are sitting in two different groups, right? In two different parts of the room, and it's like a competition. Competition l'shem shamayim, okay? For the sake of heaven. So, and also, you know, in 3 o'clock in the morning, it also keeps you awake in a bit. So it's like it goes one verse from this side of the room, and then the other side answers, and, you know, we lift each other. So, tubuli la yanasu audu dima, this half, and you answer, al-hannin al-ghafur huwa al-rahman. Ready? Okay. One, tubu lillah ya nas wa abdu dima الحنين There's a winner here. Okay. One. الحنين الغفور هو الرحمة. Again. توبوا لله عبدوا ديما الحنين الحنين الغفور هو الرحمة الحنين الغفور هو الرحمة. Okay, so imagine Hebrew poets walking in Essaouira and other places in Morocco or in Iraq or in Turkey and listening to this song, hearing this song and saying, this, first of all, as you know, Arab, as Al-Mo can tell you more, Arabic is a Jewish language. I mean, not only because these languages are so close to each other, because, you know, Jews have been speaking Arabic for much more than 1,000 years. And 1,000 years ago, about 95% of the Jewish people, in the end of the first millennium, that was their language, Arabic. That's how the big poets in Spain, Maimonides, etc., etc. This is a language that is really embodied in Jewish, you know, culture and expression and spirituality. But beyond that, so they listen to this tune. They don't feel they're listening to a tune that's coming from another world. It's this one world, especially in Morocco. You know, the Jewish culture and the Muslim culture and the Berber culture, how it's written in the Declaration of Independence of Morocco. The Moroccan culture is this combination of these three cultures. It's like one piece. So when you listen to Rabbi Chaim Luke singing, when Muslims listen, Arabs, I can say Arabs, usually Muslims also in this case, listen to Rabbi Chaim Luke singing in Hebrew, they're not listening to someone from another culture singing in Hebrew. It's part of their expression. It's part of the way to express the culture, the local culture also. So we're listening, this Paitan, this Hebrew Paitan is listening to Bulila, and still he says, okay, there is a meaning maybe, maybe we can also sing it in Hebrew. Not that it's the same, yeah? It's these two parts, they complete. So let's take it into Hebrew. So this is an ancient art. We spoke about Rabbi Israel Najara today. He's one of the main figures who also created this combination of taking a tune, either it's a Turkish tune, Ladino tune, and putting Hebrew words on it, and sometimes moving it from the secular context into the sacred context. In this case, it's both sacred. Yes, this is a devotional song. In this case, it's even easier. So I put it actually to the words of Yigdal Elohim Chai. I don't think it was done at this specific song before. I felt that the words also are close in terms of the intention. Let's feel it, how it moves from Tubulila to Yigdal Elohim Chai. Okay? Let's sing once more Tubulila, and I will move directly to Yigdal and see how you feel with it. Okay? So Tubulila. Tubulila ya nas wa abdu dima الحنين الغفور هو الرحمن يقدر الإلهي محاي ويشتبح نمتسا بإن عت المتيئوتم حد بإن يحيد كي يحوضو نعلم وغام إنسوف لأحدوتو إن اللو دموت هاقوف بأينو قوف לא נערוך אליו קדושתו כנינו קדמון לכל אשר נברא ראשון לראשיתו إنه أدون عالم لכל נוצר יורג גדולתו ומלכותו שפע נבואתו נתנו אל אנשי סגולתו נו 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 ותפארתו לא קם בישראל כמו שעוד נביא ומביט את flip the page אמונתו ברוך עד שם תהילתו כי ישמר השבת אלה ישמרני אותי לעולמי עד בינו וביני طوبوا لله يا ناس وعبدوا ديما الحنين الغفور هو الرحمن. יפה. So we have the conference choir being established here. Next time we can start with this, Shir. Next concert we can start with the choir, and then we can have it, during the sessions, between every session. Because
You can have the choir in the concert.
then the choir and the concert.
Question, sorry.
Yes.
Who, you have listed here two authors. Who, can you explain who is responsible for what?
Yes. So Yigdal Elohim Chai was written by, as written here in the, the headlines. Daniel ben Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda Dayan in Italy, he wrote Yigdal Elohim Chai in the 13th century. And Ki Yeshmera Shabbat that we just quoted the first verse. This is actually a combination that's been done many years ago. I mean, take this tune of Tabulilan to put it on Ki Yeshmera Shabbat. This is one of the most famous tunes to Ki Yeshmera Shabbat, a famous Piyyut for Shabbat. Rabbi Avraham Ibn Ezra has written here that he wrote in Spain in the 12th century. And it's known in many, many different Jewish traditions, and Moroccans have several tunes to it. And this is one of the tunes that at some point, someone made the connection, like I just did for Igdal. I don't know, maybe if you hear somewhere people singing Igdal and this tune, then you know where it started. I don't know where Ki Yeshmera Shabbat, who had the idea, but it works very well in terms of the structure, the rhythm of the poetic rhythm of the two texts, and the melody fits in naturally. So this was just a small example of how... כן, ירון, רצית להוסיף משהו?
So the two Bulilei and Ness, who
I think it's like what you say, anonymous. Yes. Yeah. So this is just an example of how naturally, these relationships have been happening all the time, of course, also in the Hasidic world, of course, the tunes being taken from the culture, surrounding culture, and being put into the Jewish context. It's different, and it's not exactly similar, but the philosophy is also a thing, is in both cases, sometimes it's taking something from the secular or even Goyish kind of a context and putting it into the sacred Jewish context. But in this case, it's not the story, as I said. This is a devotional song. This is a devotional song. You can sing both of them with the same intention, and even it's better that you have the ability to sing both of them in this devotional intention, because they complete each other. So I think I'll move to you, Roly. Yeah? So I began to answer a little bit, how I jumped into meeting the Moroccan teachers and tradition that I did not grow up in, but having it slowly becoming part of my voyage, or part of my language, part of seeking of a language for identity, prayer, spirituality, also inspiration, starting from inspiration, but then slowly moving into other dimensions of my life, which is, the artistic is just, I can say, it's a gate to find it also, to how things are present in your life, in your family, in your prayer. So how did you find yourself, involved suddenly in this seeking for, in working with the Piyyut world?
It was quite a journey. I grew up in Argentina in a Syrian family, Halabi family. My grandparents, all of them, spoke Arabic. They listened to Arabic music at home. They were sort of living that culture. And I grew up, going with my grandparents to the Syrian city I was very fascinated by the melodies and the chants, and my parents didn't want anything to do with that because they were children of immigrants. They were trying to be Argentines. They were double outsiders, as Mizrahim in an Ashkenazi majority, and they were Jews in a nationalist Catholic country, and so they respected everything, but they didn't go. And then as the years I grew up and the years passed, I sort of took my distance from that world and joined a conservative synagogue. Actually, there was a Sephardic rabbi and an Ashkenazic rabbi. A lot of the members were Sephardim from different parts, and little by little became Ashkenazic. I always had curiosity and always coming in and out, but then I went to Jewish Theological Seminary in New York, fully Ashkenazi, Hasidic Nigunim and Karlebach and so on. And then I started working in BJ, in my synagogue where I've been for since 1986. And, try to bring meaningful prayer, really with serious devotion. And at some point, I started introducing. I was into world music very much, particularly Middle Eastern music, and I wanted to have musical instruments that had some sort of a world music sound.
When you say world music, you mean not in a Jewish context. I mean Arab music,
I
Turkish
was
music.
To flamenco music, Radio Tarifa, which is some sort of fusion of Moroccan and Spanish and Middle Eastern and Turkish. I was listening to Omar Farouk, Tekbilek, all these type of things. Arab Dinjian, who now became my oud teacher. All this very eclectic. And I sort of started bringing instruments into the synagogue, and at some point, through world music, I went to study Arabic. My Arabic teacher in Israel, wasn't great, but her husband was a great oud player. And I was like completely fascinated by the sound. I couldn't concentrate in the lesson, and he would go out and play the oud while she was teaching the lesson, and I was like completely transposed. And I said, that's it. I had played the cello until then, guitar and cello. I said, no more. I want this. And I felt there was a return home, And then I started to study with Yaron knows Bassam Saba, was my oud teacher, great musician of blessed memory, who died of COVID 2 years ago in Lebanon. And we met Yaron in the Arab music retreats. So I started studying Makam for the first time. And the more I studied, the more it was like coming home, to the sounds of the synagogue of my childhood, my grandparents. And I remember, my grandparents used to listen to this. They had these records, that Wahab. Later on, they started bringing cassettes. Everybody who traveled, they would bring in cassettes. From the Shuk in Yerushalayim, they would buy it. And from there, from Arabic music, as a Jew within this group.
In New York.
Yeah, in New York. There were some Arabs right here on, and there were other people from were Christian Americans, Christian Arabs, Muslim Arabs, all sorts of very eclectic group of people, some Jews, a few Israelis. And then I started like going back, and then that's around the time, a couple of years later, I met you. And through my interest in Piyyut, and then opened a whole world for me. And I started studying, when we connected. I don't want to make it about myself, but just about how this works, I took a sabbatical. I went for 40 days.
Moshe Rabbeinu.
40 days in a farm in Vermont in February, and it was very, very, very cold. And it was in a little house in this farm, like a cabin. surrounded by snow. We couldn't do anything. I had my oud and I had my laptop. And I went with Yair's guidance. We would talk on the phone from time to time. I went through the whole Piyyut, the old Piyyut website.
At that time, the Piyyut website had like maybe a few hundred Piyyut.
I went Piyyut by Piyyut by Piyyut by Piyyut. You know, some of them I listened for 2-3 seconds. I said, Zeloze. And then I started writing a list of all the things that were of interest that I thought could begin to introduce in the synagogue. And
So what were you looking for in bringing these Piyyutim into the synagogue?
I was looking for, first of all, to break the box of only Ashkenazic music and Karlebach music, and Hasidic music, which is beautiful but limiting. You know, I wanted to expand. Not only I wasn't so much about the cultural, repertoire. It was about finding a different type of expression, for prayer, a different type of vehicle. Peter spoke about vehicular. That the music as a vehicle for the expression of emotions that Ashkenazic, Hasidic, Karlebach music, it doesn't, it expresses a lot of things, but there are certain things it can't. And so there was just another set of, expanding the palette of colors in prayer, in the expression of prayer.
And I want to ask you soon, how do people react to that? Because naturally there's a lot of gaps. I remember that more or less at that time, maybe a few years after we met, I came also to New York and I did a small workshop in a few communities, never mind the names. And the way it was introduced, I think at one point, because people, I think it's still, we're not really understanding how to relate to this. So one way, for example, was come learn from some new cool tunes to your Adon Olam and Yedid Nefesh. Right. Like having a cool tune from a Yemenite tune or a Iraqi tune, something very exotic, coming and putting it on your Adon Olam and your Yedid Nefesh. So it's a very, very limiting, way to see these, okay, there's what I know. There's a cool exotic tune coming to give some flavor. So, but you're talking about something totally...
for a lot of people, sometimes you have to sell it that way, say, try this, it's really cool, or it's really fun, or it's really, and people like it, it's like a Arabic tune, Middle Eastern tune. But then they begin to understand something, number one, that it opens some other parts of the soul or the heart, to some other expression. First of all. Second of all, there's all of these words, this poetry, it's like new things, that people didn't know. Of course, Lecha Dodi they know, Adon Olam they know, Igdal Elohim Chai they know, but some other things they don't know. They don't know Shlomo Ibn Gabirol, Shachar Avakeshcha, they don't know.
So I have an idea, you know what? There's a yes.
I just want to say one more thing, but then you begin to realize that also, Peter was talking about the Bakashot, so, we went together to lots of synagogues, also the synagogue of my childhood, and also in New York, I go to these places, and you begin to educate yourself in a different dynamic of prayer. The dynamic of prayer in a Sephardic Mizrahi synagogue is very different than an Ashkenazic synagogue in terms of how people participate. And you begin to learn that, and you begin to bring that type of dynamic to an Ashkenazic synagogue like where I am. There's some people who have Sephardic roots from the Balkans, from Turkey, and so on, but largely Ashkenazic synagogue. And it begins to transform the dynamic of call and response. You have refrains that, people begin to express in a different way, and so it opened up a lot of things, in terms of emotion, expression, in terms of dynamics, in terms of the poetry that you can bring, the poems. Now people resist in the beginning, because it's much more difficult. It's not, for those of you who are familiar with Karlebach tune or Hasidic nigun, some of them are Hasidic nigunim can be very intricate, but a lot of them are very easy to learn, they're catchy. And Karlebach tunes are very catchy. So you suddenly put something more complex in terms of the language, in terms of the melody, and some people resist. You know,
I want to be excited and I want to dance, and as soon as
exactly.
possible.
I want the high, the instant high. Say no. This is going to be a much deeper thing, but you're going to have to put in the work. So after trying and failing and trying and failing, and some of the things caught, some of the things didn't catch, I started creating groups for people who wanted this thing, who wanted to work on it. And this created a core of people who want to work on it, you put in the time to learn it, to practice it, to incorporate it, to look at the Hebrew, and so on and so forth. And these people then become the core. Other people say, I also want to be part of it. B'kasha.
Yeah.
You know, little by little.
So I have an idea. I don't know, some came to my mind suddenly. There's a group of people here that I think they really want to be involved.
Yeah, let's
And there's a
So-
Piyyut here, by Ibn Gabirol,
That's right.
that just it came to be that the translator is also sitting here.
Exactly. I think we know him. It's a beautiful translation.
Maybe you can flip up to the next page, and Roly, can you please teach us this
Yes.
this song? Maybe you can
So
also
this is a
listen to the
beautiful-
translations.
Take a moment to look at the words in Hebrew, if you know Hebrew, in English, if you know English. And you'll see very soon that this is a poem all about oneness, and each stanza ends with the word echad. We sang it last night in the concert. And this is, it has many melodies, this Piyyut, but a number of years ago, a woman was doing research in Hadas Pal Yarden. She was doing research in Turkey about Jewish Turkish music, Ladino, and other. And she heard this melody from one man in the community. He didn't want to record it for her. She persuaded him to do it, and he recorded for her this melody, and she basically, like many other people, who go and research and so on, and disseminated this melody that is now sung in many communities, and it really fits very beautifully this poem. So let's take the second line is the refrain, second and third line. You see, Ya'idun, Yagidun, Kulam ke'echad, Adonai echad, Ushmo echad. You can see that it's related to the Shema. So in our synagogue, we use it often before the prayers that lead to the Shema, right before those who are, if you're familiar with the service, in the Baruch Hu, before the Baruch Hu that leads to the Shema Israel, as a way to pause in the service, sing this poem in order to refocus and prepare oneself.
And in a way, this was one of the core, I think, I can say, in the Piyyut. This is, in a way, one of the main functions, exactly, of the Piyyutim are to have you being present before an important part in the prayer, which is a fixed prayer. You want to be present there, not just to rush into it, like what he was just describing. And on the other hand, you want to have the ability to meet it, to renew yourself before your meeting. So this is why many Piyyutim were written, for example, for these before Nishmat Kol Chai. It's called the Rashut Nishmat Kol Chai. So that, again, is a relationship that we spoke of before between the personal, the creative, the contemporary, and something that is beyond you. You don't change the words of Shema Yisrael. I don't think even in the most progressive synagogue, they still, and I hope they won't have the idea of, they say, the Shema Yisrael, I have an idea, you know what, maybe let's take out this word and put on this word. There's something that is beyond you. But you want to renew yourself in a way, again, being present there, and also to having another context. This has the ability, something that has the divine ability to receive new interpretations all the time. So this is probably the core of the Piyyut function.
Okay, so let's sing it. So here's the refrain. Ya'idun, Yagidun, Kulam ke'echad, Adonai echad, U'shemo echad. Slow do just that.
يعيدون يجدون
Again.
يعيدون يجدون
כולם כאחד.
كلام كحال
You can do אחד. Little embellishment. כולם כאחד. אדוני אחד.
אדוני אחד
ושמו אחד. ושמו
אחד
אדוני אחד. ושמו אחד.
אדוני אחד ושמו אחד
יעידון יגידון כולם כאחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Same melody repeats. שלושים ושתיים נתיבות שבילה לכל וביסודם יספרו גודלך יכירו כי הכל שלך ואתה המלך המיוחד. יעידון יעידון
יגידון כולם
כאחד. אדוני אחד ושמו. Now let's do this side לבבות. לבבות. Just this side.
וחושבם עולם בנוי ימצאו כל יש בלתך
This side במספר.
במספר במשקל הכל מנוי ניתנו ברועי.
Everybody יעידון יעידון יגידון כולם כאחד. אדוני אחד ושמו. מראש this side over here. מראש
עד סוף יש לך סימן
שחק this side. שחק ותבל לך עת נאמן. מזה אחד ומזה אחד. יעידון יעידון יגידון כולם אחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. הכל ממך נזבד זבון. אתה תעמוד והם יאבדו עוון. וכל יצור אליך ייתן כבוד. כי מראש ועד סוף יעידון יעידון יגידון כולם כאחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. A little bit more quiet. ובתורתך אדוני אלוהינו כתוב לאמור. Together. שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני אחד. Oh, beautiful.
You're welcome to our virtual or global synagogue. I just want to point out something important and also connecting, reflecting to what we just heard also in previous, in Peter's talk about the pronunciation of the words. And again, I think it's really such a great context to this, because even when most Hebrew speakers sing piyutim, they don't necessarily understand what they're singing. So naturally, if you're not a Hebrew speaker, so if you have a good translation, it helps. But then you come back to the pronouncing and singing the Hebrew words. And I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that also that we heard that it's really beyond the meaning, what you're understanding. I think it's good to have a general, understanding of, even if catching the essence of the song about oneness, about echad. So even to just have that notion in your mind while you're singing. And, recite Shema Yisrael every day. Some people do it every day, yes, morning, evening. And so for thousands and thousand times in one person's life. And still there's a mystery to it. What do you say when you say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Eloheinu, Hashem Echad? What do you mean? There are books being written about it continuously. So again, just take this example of one pasuk. You may understand it to a certain limit, but beyond what you understand, the expression also of the letters, the Hebrew letters, the words, the sentence, the rhythm, and then also the tune coming in, of course, allows you to open yourself up to understanding that it's beyond also the meaning of the words. This is why the pronunciation of the letters becomes even more important. It's always important. So as much as you can, if we would have time, we would have practiced it now together to go word after word and to say kol and the nikud, the Hebrew, the vowels, how to pronounce them. דגש או לא דגש, כל ברואי מעלה ומטה, יעידון, יגידון, כולם כאחד. How you pronounce it, how you curve the words in your mouth, it really has a meaning. And also, of course, it will always sound better, musically. And this is also the sense of rhythm, that we're not adding the clapping just, to amuse ourselves. The sense of rhythm of the beat here, and you see a lot of paitani, they do it all the time, sometimes on their lap, as I did. Just try to do this one beat on your lap. It doesn't have to even have sound to it. You can just, have the feeling. يعيدون يجدون كلهم كحد أدوناي أحد وشمو أحد يعيدون يجدون كلهم كحد أدوناي أحد وشمو أحد. To have the sense of beat. It could be really inner. It doesn't even have to have sound. It gives you a sense of center and also of presence. And it focuses the singing also in the expression.
Yeah, also many of these melodies, the repetitiveness of the melodies, this quality that repeats allows you to not have to think about the melody and just to dwell in the word, in the poem, in your thinking, in your, just like detach yourself from having to be thinking about the music. It becomes, you sort of, in many ways you internalize it and it becomes just natural, like walking and not thinking about it.
Mm. So before you want to ask me a question maybe, I want to reflect on something. And also, this is part of the questions about the future, because we said we want to try to connect also in this, also in a way, closing session of this beautiful conference. We're speaking about the past, the present, but also the future. There's a sentence that I like in Hebrew. I don't know exactly how it was formed. Maybe I made it up, maybe I didn't, maybe I heard it from someone. It says, We're looking for a kol atik haba min ha'atid, an ancient voice that is coming from the future. It's some of this relationship of when you're also looking for the future, what you're saying, it's something that's coming from something deep in our memory, but it's also like echoing or also reflecting something you're listening to, coming from the future, happening right now. What is now, yeah? This moment now was a second ago, now it's past, and a second from now, it's future. So this movement between past, present, and future, and reflecting on the past and thinking about the future in this sense. Listen, we're speaking about how can this relate, for example, to English speakers that are not speaking Hebrew or understanding Hebrew in a Jewish context. Let's just remind ourselves that almost all of this poetry was written in exile, in diaspora, where people did not speak Hebrew. Most of the people that sang it did not understand what they're singing. But something, again, about what we just spoke of, I won't repeat it, has the ability, the quality to have a meaning even if you're not understanding everything that you're saying. Of course, it's a whole culture setting. Maybe it needs more time, it needs more innocence, it needs more belief. I mean, not saying we can't adopt it as it is, structures from the past to the future, but it's important to remember this, to acknowledge it. We're speaking about an art that was created by very, very special individuals, scholars that had very high Hebrew abilities, poetry, but they were not speaking Hebrew, and most of their crowd did not understand what they're singing. And still, it's been passed away from generation to generation.
Maybe we have questions from you, or comments, or reflections before we continue.
מה יקרה בכנס בעוד 10 שנים? The conference in 10 years from now, how would it look like?
Okay.
Do you have any problems introducing musical instruments, into the service?
No, some people didn't like it, and some people didn't join or come because there were musical instruments. But on the other side, many people came because there was live music that I think made the prayer more dynamic and supported the community singing. It's a very participatory community. Well, the two of you have been there, and you've seen that. People really, the music in this case helps to arouse something, to awaken something, and people really like it. It adds, by the way, the 3 musicians that played last night are musicians who play Dan, Satoshi, and Ismail. So Dan is from Israel, Satoshi is from Macedonia, actually from...
Satoshi is from Japan. Ismail is from
Satoshi is from Japan. He's very, very drawn to Jewish prayer. It's incredible. He doesn't come to play in order to get a check. He comes to, of course he has his parnasah, he has his, but he really loves it. He's been doing it for years. And he really came to understand something about this prayer from within. We've talked about it many times, and he's really into it. Ismail is from Macedonia, and he is from a town, Monastir, where there was a very active Jewish community, Ladino-speaking Jews in Macedonia, which was part of Greece. And he was also, fully present there in the prayer. So the 3 of them are Dan, Ismail, and Satoshi are part of the musicians that play on Shabbat and Chagim. So they know the material, they learn it, they love it. And it's really great to have them,
So before I try to answer Mog's question, any other comments? Because it may be long, I don't know. Okay. So I think in order to answer the question of the future in a way, if I'm reflecting again on the story here and what happened also in my voyage and also in Roly's voyage, it's important to maybe understand. Sometimes you don't understand it at the time, but what's the question? What is your question? where is the longing? Where's the why? for me personally, I grew up in a religious environment as I generally described to you. And at a certain point, like Roly, in a way, I took a distance from it. I mean, I can say I ran away from it. And then started to study music only after the army. In Israel, it's like what you do before the army and what you do after the army. It's like this borderline. So after the army, being really quite alone in terms of relationship with community, with identity, not totally, but quite open. And I started to, there was a question there. I didn't have words for it, but there was a question because something was missing. This religious life that I grew up in was not present in my life so much. And I was looking for a way, for a spiritual path, I can say. And I started to learn music, not Jewish music, Persian music actually. And one of the teachers, as you well pronounced, Jamshid Shamirani. I mean, I started with his student in Israel. I was so lucky, really so lucky. I think when you have this really longing in yourself, the reality, the world helps you in a way. Like you don't exactly know how it's going to happen, but you're really looking for something. Something supports you from the world. If you know how to pronounce to have the question out there, something comes back. And from learning, and I'll run quickly again, just to, I think because it holds something there. So starting to learn Persian music, and then Arab music, and then Andalusian, and nothing from the Jewish context. And then acknowledge that, hey, my grandmother is coming from Iraq, Kurdistan, what does that mean? Okay, so that's one thing. So I'm going to the National Library, in the archives there, in the Phonoteca, and starting to listen to recordings of people who came from the 50s from Iraq and Kurdistan, because that wasn't in my ear. I mean, it was in a way, because I was spending time with my grandmothers as a child, quite a lot. We were actually very close. But it was crossing. It's not something that echoed in, the educational system. And even my father was already total meshuknaz, what we say. He grew up in the same environment, Ashkenazi environment. So I was trying to restore some kind of memory. Without really understanding what exactly is there, I was quite weird, actually sitting there in the Phonoteca, people are coming to do their research, their PhD and that, to listen to these, recordings of immigrants and to try to do their work on it. And I was sitting there and just listening. Why are you listening? Well, I'm looking for something. And it happened to be that a decade after that, we created the Piyyut website so people can do exactly that without necessarily having to go to the archive and asking, begging for, can I please listen to this? And why do you want to listen to it? I want to listen to it. Anyway, that was a decade after, more or less, that time. So listening is trying to restore some kind of language, and then meeting suddenly, as I said, this blasting point in a way was when I met something that I totally did not grow up on. I told Rabbi Yair, my teacher for Moroccan Andalusian singing and music, and I was shocked of this relationship. He was also this Haredi guy. He looked Haredi, but very, very sweet and open and soft. Takes the violin, puts it on his knee. I never saw that before. Now it's like very common. And he starts to sing and to accompany himself. Sha'ar petah dodi, sha'ar petah dodi. Very sweet voice. So I look at someone who looks like a rabbi that I grew up, in the yeshiva that I ran away from. But he's singing these such beautiful, soft, beautiful words, and the words, Sha'ar petach dodi, kuma petach sha'ar, ki nivhala nafshi, gam nisarasa, like he was speaking about me. Come, my beloved, open the gate, because my soul is disturbed and looking for something, as I said before. To open the gate. So suddenly things start to come together. The language, the spirituality, the words, or the language of prayer that comes with the music, that connects these parts that were separate before, and that they're coming together in this very, surprising way in this Haredi man sitting, in front of me. So, all the definitions are being in, I think that's also what's beautiful about it, that this another dimension, important dimension of this work is that you saw yesterday in the concert that people were there really, from what I was told, from all different congregations, Orthodox, Reform, Conservative people. I mean, it has this ability to go beyond denomination and even to shake up the denominational approach that we're so used to also in Israel. So that's, I think, this is another part of the future, I think, that's what's happening now. How you can reform from this art of Piyyut a much wider context of how you approach Judaism in general, in terms of what is a traditional language? Where do you fit in that? How does that resonate in relationship, as I said, in the Middle East? We spoke before with the Jews and the Jewish and the Arab, relationship much beyond the Israeli, Palestinian conflict. So it really has the ability to reform many, many things, to build a new home, a new vessel for a Jewish identity practice that can really, in a good way, shake the denominations. Also here, people I think are quite tired to call themselves, to limit themselves. I'm a Reform, I'm conservative, I'm this, I'm that. I mean, it's limiting. Maybe it had its time. Now maybe it's more institution than idea. I don't know. It's probably much more complicated than that. I'm just putting things in. You want to relate to that?
I just wanted to add briefly that it also. I think what we see, the vision for the future, is we're now living sort of multiculturalism. We were talking before, Yair and I, so you are this, you are this, you are this. You can all be together. Sort of everybody can live side by side, and everybody's valued, for what they bring. What I think we're trying now is where we're going for is for people to say, I am Ashkenazi, my family's from Germany, but Morocco, Jewish Moroccan music or Turkish music or Piyyutim are part of my patrimony also as a member of this global community. It's also mine, of course I'm more rooted in this tradition of German Jewry and its music and culture and literature. So that's where my roots are, but my soul can expand, to also include and incorporate it. It's not cultural appropriation. I can swim in this ocean, this sort of more global type of ocean of Jewish languages and poetry and music, that just open the soul in different ways. And I don't have to be in this box. I think that's also part of because otherwise, how do I explain that at Synagogue Laiman or Ariel's, who was Rabbi Harel Rosenberg, who was singing with us last night, she has a congregation here, liberal congregation in Minneapolis. Why those people are going to want to sing Piyyutim, otherwise? It's like, it's a cute thing, it's a nice melody. No, it's much more than that. It's like, it's part of my, we have, I think our consciousness has expanded over the last couple of decades, in terms of becoming more global and appreciating. We all read literature from all sorts of parts of the world, South America, Japan, Europe. I look at the books on my night table, so why not also try to invite people to open up to this. That's why we changed it. It was called Piyyut North America. We changed the name to Global Piyyut Music. So that's the idea.
Yeah, and I think in parallel to that, to this conversation, something has to start from very, very young age. I think that could make a difference. For example, in Israel, and we're trying to now think how this could be brought here. So things were evaluated, we're moving, as I said before, from coming back to my personal biography in a way, from, again, suddenly my interests, I saw that it could be, I was approached to teach something in the university, in the Hillel, to do a workshop on Piyyutim. This was in the year 2000, more or less, 2001. I say, okay, I don't know much, but okay. If it's, I can bring myself with what I know, with my questions, and let's start to like the research it together, sing what I can know, and maybe invite teachers. So these groups of Piyyut workshops started to form themselves in Hillels, and they moved from university to university. It moved quite quick, and then singing communities beyond the university to have, you know, why only students? Yeah, why not everyone? And this was suddenly okay, quite quick, becoming in something national, moving from city to city, having these singing communities meet every week to sing into, and then from that, okay, why only these a few hundreds people? Let's make then the website, invitation to Piyyut, and from that moving to the Piyyut Festival, because this is something that is really has a very artistic form. So I'm saying this because this is a structure to say if you want to create change, also maybe here, there's something of this holistic approach, having it, as you say, looking at the Piyyut, there's the artistic dimension, there's the educational dimension, there's the synagogue dimension. So all these things are part of one story. So see how you can really create relationships in that. And when I said about young age, and then we'll move to the next song, there is a project we started to do in Israel. It's called Come to My Garden, which is also quoting a Piyyut, but it is a Piyyut in kindergartens. The year, starting from 5-year-old. Again, if you're speaking about understanding the Piyyutim, 5-year-olds more or less, naturally, it's not children's songs. They probably will understand what they will understand. But again, that just proves the power of it. When you recite it in a young age, beyond understanding the words, you're not even, nobody's expecting you to understand it. But it's coming into a different place in your memory, in your consciousness, in your soul. That will be things that will follow you until very, very old age, if it's there from very young age. So how to move that also to imagine that something is starting from a very young age, reforming what is Jewish Israeli identity. What did we learn in the kindergarten until recent years? Something very, very specific. The Israeli story manifested in the songs of young age. I mean, that's how you start to, create the common DNA. Was something very, very narrow. Now it's starting to change. This project is in more than 2,000 kindergartens in Israel. It's being received quite naturally, also secular and also religious. So approaching the future, we don't know exactly. But I think if you form these channels of knowledge and you hold this passion and see how you can, it can resonate in different aspects of a cultural setting, schools, kindergartens, synagogues, artists, relationships between Israel and diaspora, the Jewish Arab world, and just to open up these channels and to put life into them. And, things will happen the way they will happen. So maybe we sing something.
Yes, let's end this amazing 2 days. I'm looking at Shir,
She wants to go to sleep.
Okay. Yair,
Yeah.
how many people know this song, Yair? You know the melody, the Iraqi melody we sang last night?
Yofi. So we'll teach you another one. No, we didn't. This is, one of the Ashkenazi tunes, It's nice. It's a nice one. Yeah, my mother is singing. Ya Ribon Olam Olam Ya Antum Malka Melech Malchaya Antum Malka Melecha Itatezi Semelech Antum Malka Melech Melech Malechaya. It's one of them. If you go to the Piyyut website, I think there are like 50 tunes to this song. And we'll teach you one of them. Okay, so this is, as you know, Rabbi Israel Najara, we spoke about him. This is Aramic, which is another phenomena, a language which is not Hebrew, not Arabic, and we had this still some of the most sacred prayers until nowadays are said in Aramic. But this is another story, as we said. Okay. So it's a song of praise, a song of gratitude. It's good to end maybe with this kind of notion of praise and gratitude, and also acknowledging the fact that there's a voyage to do. Some of the words here, we didn't bring the translation in this case, but
Peter didn't translate it.
Peter is not translating the Jara yet, but maybe he will. So there is a voyage also in this tune, a voyage that, like many Piyyutim, end in a request or a prayer for redemption. It's the state of mind of Jerusalem and the temple, holding it in our mind. It's not only the physical Jerusalem and temple, but just praying for this state of mind of something that is more full, more peaceful, more again looking for this ancient voice coming from the future. Bezrat Hashem. يا غريب عالم وعلمايا أنته مالكا ملك ملخيا. Let's teach it for a while. يا غريب عالم once more, يا عالم وعلمايا أنتم مالكا ملك ملخيا. The verse. عبدي جبرتك وتيم هيا شفر قدمي لها حبايا يا رب العالم والعلمايا أنتم ملخايا. شبحين أسد صفراء ورمشا إلخ إلها قديشا بغى كل نفشا عير قديش وبني نشا حوات برا عف شميا يا قلب العالم والعلمايا أنتم مالكا ملك ملك. אלמוג, בכבוד, רב רבין. רב רבין وتخليفين زقير كفيفي شمين هفي ضيعك مرتاب بحوش بنايا
ملك
כל אומיה
يا ريبان الله والمايا أنتم ملكا ملك والخيا يا ريبان الله والمايا أنتم ملكا
למקדש החטוא. Give me the one here. ולקודש קודשים אתה ורדי ויחדון רוחי ונפשי ويزمروا لك ويزمروا لك شيرين راحشين ويزمروا لك شيرين راحشين يروشلم كرتا نشوف رايا אלמי קדש החטוא ולקודש קודשים אתה יחדון רוחי ונפשי ויזמרון לך שירים ורחשים בירושלים קרתה
נשוף ראיה
יא
ריבון עלמיה אנתום מלכה מלך מלכיה
יא ריבון עולם أنتم ملك ملك ملخا لست على يا أنتم ملك ملك توبوا لله يا ناس وعبدوا ديما الحنين الغفور هو الرحمة one sentence يقدر ويشتبح נמצא ואין עת אל מציאותו. מקובל ורצון. תודה רבה.
Next
תודה
year,
שיר.
same time, same place.
תודה רולי, תודה נתן, תודה שיר, תודה לכם.
So you'll remember, yeah. You remember 2 days ago, before we were friends, 2 days ago before we were all friends, and I thanked Shir and I named her the genius organizer of the conference. And now I say it again with a fuller meaning, the genius organizer of the conference, the richness of the panels that she put together, the resonances between the different speakers, the virtuosic presentations that we heard, the music that we heard. Astonishing talent together for 2 days. When Shir and I talked, was it 2 years ago, about things that we might want to do, and we both said we love Piyyut. And Shir said, you know, I want to do something that brings joy. And the pandemic was hard. It is hard. And we wanted to do something that would bring us together, not just as scholars and academics and musicians, but as human beings who wanted to engage with something that we're passionate about. And I'm so grateful to all of you for sharing your talent, your knowledge, your wisdom, your love, your commitment to these things that we study and also love doing. So thank you very much for sharing of yourselves together. We hope to see the resonances of this gathering for years to come, the collaborations that I think will happen. And we will remember that they began with Shir. Toda Rabba, thank you very much. And we have the room until 10. There are snacks in the back. If you want to hang out,